Hello, amazing one. How are you? So, I wanted to take you through some of the processes that I sometimes go through at the end of the year. I don't do all of these processes at the end of every single year. It totally depends on what kind of year I've had, what what my challenges were, what my overall experience was, and it really um, depends on how I'm feeling by the time I get to the end of the year. Sometimes I get to the end of the year and I feel like, gosh, that was a big year, like a really big year. Or maybe I have felt like I haven't unpacked um, as much as I could have unpacked or understood or worked through or moved through the year that feels like is potentially there. And that can be for a number of reasons, because of life, because you're busy, because you've got a basket and there's a few eggs in it, and all different kinds of reasons, right? So sometimes I get towards the end of the year and I'll do a few of these things. Sometimes I throw all my tools and resources that I can at it, especially if it's been a year that has been super transformative, really stretched me in a lot of different directions. I suppose some people would call that quite trying, quite hard, quite difficult. Um, but that hard, difficult, trying can actually be disguised as a massive growth period, or taking several steps up on your evolutionary process as a consciousness being, as a spiritual being. So I wanted to share with you some of the tools and resources that I use that I find work wonders for me. That is a way for me to be able to really easily, effectively, and peacefully reconcile the year that I've just been through, and to be able to prepare for a new year. Now, in the My Incredible Orbit Academy community, when we get to December of every year, we actually focus on December as being our reconciliation month. It means that we've looked back through the entire year. That's what we're doing metaphorically, energetically, consciously. And it's all of our collective innate wisdom's way of being able to say and bring to the table as priorities to address. What is the most important things that we need to address within our body mind complexes that relates to this year? That we either need to reconcile, repair, review, let go of, move away from, prepare for, whatever it is. It's like we don't want to leave anything, if possible, we don't want to leave anything left wide open and raw and unrepaired, unreconciled, and not looked at, because we're about to move into a new orbit. So we want to be able to prepare for that. So that's something really wonderful that we do in our academy. And then we move on and do lots of other sessions and courses and interviews throughout the whole year. So if that academy is something that you feel like you would really benefit from and grow a lot in, as others do, then you can find out more information on my website. But I'm going to give you a condensed version today so that you can see some of the tools that I use. Now, the other thing that I wanted to mention is this is not an exercise that you have to wait until you get to either December or January to do. And by the way, there is no set timer when you have to do this. So you don't have to do it in December, you don't have to do it in January, you can do it in February. But you can do it at any time of the year. So this is a wonderful set of exercises to do whenever you have finished a cycle, because that's what it's really about. It's about coming to the end of a cycle and taking a step back or a few steps back, depending on how intense it's been, and looking at it and saying, gosh, how do I feel about that cycle that I've just been through? Does it feel like I've really completed it and there are no loose ends around it? I don't have any overreactions or triggers or massive, emotional overreactions to anything throughout that cycle. And I really honestly, truthfully feel like I'm ready to move into the next cycle and that's done. If you can say that, then you might not need to do any of this at all. But if you feel like for whatever reason that you would like to dot your I and cross your T and be able to move into a new cycle without dragging unresolved issues from your previous cycle into it, I would highly suggest doing at least a few of these. So I very commonly do it at the end of every year, moving into a new year. I will do it when I intuitively am pulled to do it. So sometimes that's in December, sometimes it's in January, and sometimes I'm still finishing some projects off in February. However, there are other things that are cycles. You might be finishing a job and about to move into a new job. You might be finishing a job and moving into a brand new career. And you might want to really be able to let go of all that, especially if it was stressful or you had difficult relationships in that. If you had any periods of time where you had depression linked to that work, any breakdowns, then that would be a really great time to do it, because that's a cycle trying to finish out and you're taking stepping stones into a new cycle. And we very commonly, unfortunately, are not taught at all to take the time to look at a cycle and complete a cycle before embarking on a new cycle. So it means that majority of people are just carrying around an enormous amount of unresolved issues that then shows up as imbalances in the physical body, in our health, in our emotional wellness, in the energetics of our body, in our spiritual well-being, in all levels of us. It will show up in every single level, every single area. It will show up in us, all those unresolved issues. It's not selective. So uh, it can be leaving one work or career and moving into another. It can be leaving a relationship. And don't underestimate um, the importance of needing to perhaps do this process, leaving a friendship relationship. And the idea is that you're getting ready to move into perhaps new friendships, new relationships. Of course, with a intimate relationship, you can do this. It's absolutely fantastic. The other thing, so think about cycles, things that you have a cycle, or things that they feel like they have a cycle to them and they are trying to come to a completion, and we want to help them complete so that we can freshly start from a very renewed perspective, right? In a much better direction or in a healthier direction. So you can look at a month as being a cycle. You can look back on January and go, gosh, January was a doozy. And so I'm going to do this review process for January like it's a cycle, and I'm going to start fresh. You can do this after a day. A day is a cycle, an hour is a cycle, a minute is a cycle, okay? There are cycles within cycles within cycles, right? If you can see the cycle, acknowledge it as a cycle. It could even be an addiction that you're coming out of. Everyone has addictions, by the way. No one gets off without having no addictions. So it could be an addictive pattern that is a cycle and you're coming out of that, right? Radio. So go wild with this. Do it for whatever cycle you feel you need to. You don't have to do them all at the same time. You can just do them whenever they intuitively jump up for you. The process that I do that works for me because it suits my personality and I get to play at the same time is I use an art journal to bring this all together. Also, then it's something that I can start a process with my art journal and I can close the book and then I can come back to it later. You might like to work with this in a different way. You might like to do it in a document online, or you might like to open a free Canva account and go use one of their templates to do an online book. And then you can not only use their images and their text and everything to go in there, which is quite a real cathartic process to go through and do all that, because you're very much deeply entangled in the process, having to concentrate and really think about what you're doing next. That could be an option for you as well. So just do whatever works for you. My method might not be what is right for you. And if you do come up with a method that is slightly different, I would love to know what you did and what worked for you, because it might just be something that really fits the bill for one of my other clients, and I might be able to pass on a bit of that information. So please share it into the comments because I would absolutely love that. The first thing that I do every year is I write a letter to the year that I've just been through. Now, I started this in 2008. Actually, I started it in about 2009, 2010, I think it was. And the reason why I started doing it is because of the lifetime experience that I had in 2008. I broke several times over within that year. And it was a year where, even though I was doing work on myself and really looking into the shadows that were coming up around that, there was still lingering stuff. It still really triggered me when I thought about that year, and I could feel it, not just emotionally, but I could feel it in my body. And I was sitting in nature doing some meditation back in either 2009 or 2010, and intuitively I had the thought to write a letter to the year that was 2008. However, you're going to do this from the perspective of, and this is where it became a real game changer for me, because you can write a letter to the year or to the thing, the year, the cycle that was whatever it was for you. And sometimes that can come out as quite angry or as quite blameful. But what my innate wisdom, my intuition showed me is, if we do it from this perspective, as though you are sitting on a park bench with a friend, right? So you're in a big park, you're on a bench, and this is your friend sitting beside you. And it's an old friend. You know this friend. And this friend is whatever that cycle is. So this is 2008 sitting beside me. And you're sitting here in this peaceful, natural surroundings, vulnerable, and you're exchanging as friends do. And what you're going to do is you're going to tell that friend what your experience from them was. So what your experience was from cycle, whatever cycle's name is, and you can go into whatever detail you want to. But what I usually put into my letter, and I'll show you an example of that. Give me 1 second. This is the letter that I just wrote to 2021. So it kind of, my page was too big, right? Sometimes the letters that I write are a couple pages long, sometimes they're half a page. It's different. Every year is different. And usually what the things that I find that just naturally comes up in the letter, and I really let it flow just of the heart. I give permission for my mind to take a step sideways and not get involved too much. And rather than going into blame or anger, and it's okay to say, to write in there, I was really angry, or gosh, this brought up a lot of anger in me, because you're sharing it with your friend who is this cycle, right? Remember, it's from a friend perspective. But what I find that normally comes up for me is phrases like, you taught me, dot, 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 and all the things that I realized that that cycle taught me. I have become, dot, dot, dot. This showed me, dot, dot, dot. I changed, dot, dot, dot. I needed to, and that might go into boundaries, ideas around boundaries or changes I needed to make or things like that. So we're doing it from the perspective of what it revealed. It revealed, it showed me, it taught me, it grew me. Yeah. And it's quite amazing what you find comes forth as part of that letter to that cycle. And at the end of it, I always feel so much more peaceful, at ease, and completed with whatever that cycle is. I feel like there's nothing more to say. It just is as it is, and it is all perfect. Now, surprisingly, well, not surprisingly, I should say, but that same exercise then started coming up in sessions for one-on-one clients that I work with, but also in the My Incredible Orbit community. It started to come up in relation to maybe big traumatic experiences that people had had, or when we got to the end of the year and we were doing our reconciliation process in December. And I must say that everyone who takes the time to do this gets such a huge reward out of it, because it is such a peaceful, completed feeling that we get on the other side of this. And ultimately, what we are all innately looking for is that peace, is the freedom, and is the love that we experience from that. So, a letter to the cycle or to the year is what I always do without fail. Okay. The other thing that I do is, I'm just checking my notes to make sure I don't forget to mention anything to you, is I do a review of the year from a perspective of what would I change and what would I include. And I will go through it again, all in written form. Where did I do that? I'll show you the one, because I'm still working on the one for this year. But this is my one, and I have lots of different art journals, and I just jump from one to the other, so there's no rhyme or reason to my madness. This is my changes and inclusions for last year that I worked on. And sometimes this is a process that I go through and I will scribble it all out over paper. And then what I do is I'll come back and define it down so that then it feels and looks complete, and I'm really happy with it. And what this does is it's me then having a look over the whole year and basically asking myself, what didn't work last year? What happened? What was going on that I didn't like, that didn't work for me? Because then it shows me what I need to either change, get rid of, eliminate, or bring in. All right? Or figure out how I bring into my life. What did work? Even if it's just a little bit, and I can identify it and say, gosh, that only happened once or twice, but geez, that worked well for me, or I enjoyed it, I liked it, it produced this for me. Then I can identify it and then figure out, how do I get more of that? Do I need to get more of that? Is it even a priority for me to get more of that? So what did work for me? What I liked and what I didn't like. Because I'm not really interested in doing what I didn't like. So what I didn't like is very, very important. I want to try and eliminate that as much as I can. And the last couple of years, because of this entire massive shift in our global consciousness, it has then moved and shaped things up very, very quickly. And it has meant that I've had to go in different directions than what I was thinking that I was going to go, which is absolutely fine. I'm cool with that. But it's also then been able to reveal what I don't need, what I don't want, what I do. And some of the things that I do want, trying to figure out how I get them in and how to get them working properly has been a little bit of a challenge, but that's a-okay, because that is the beauty of this review process, is it just helps it happen and come about all that much clearer, quicker, and easier. I always ask what I want more of. Maybe it's not something that was part of my life last year, but maybe through the review process, I identify that I'm ready for it now, or that my body mind complex to some degree needs it now. And that then is an area that I can really tune into and look at bringing in. And especially around how can I make that happen? If I need to get rid of it, how do I make that happen? If I need to bring it in, how do I need to make that happen? Is it something I just need to change? So I don't need to get rid of it. It's just maybe working not so well. Then how do I need to make that happen? Or who do I need to help me bring that about? Okay. So a changes and inclusions list for the year or for the cycle. The other thing that I sometimes do, but I don't do it all the time, is a gratitudes list for that cycle. Now, when I got to the end of 2021, I really felt the intensity and the enormity of the past 22 years sitting there like this big. And it wasn't like a weight for me. The best way I can describe it is it's a lot. It just felt like a lot. Okay. So when I got to the end of the year, I really had to just completely cut off from work and take the holidays that I said that I was going to take. And I had to walk away from the computers, the office, the technology, everything. I had to walk away from it for a few weeks. And then on about the third week, I was then able to come to this place where I was able to do this gratitudes list for 2021, because the enormity, the bigness of the last 2 years sat so in my face that I literally just had to take steps back away and say, wow, well, that is a lot. And then just watch it being a lot. So you might have similar experiences where whatever it is that you've been or going through feels like a lot. And one of the ways to radically transform that and help the shifting of that, the way that it feels, and there's nothing wrong with the way that it feels, we're just observing it, we're just going to watch it, we're not trying to get rid of it, it's not bad, but there is a way that you can really help transmutate what it is into what it wants to be, and transmutate your energies and where you are into where you innately are trying to go. So that transmutation process is very important. And giving gratitudes is one of the best ways to do that. So very, very often what I will do is, and I wonder if I did that in here. One of the things that I did was I sat down and did a list. I did. This is on one of my pages that I haven't done much work on yet. So that's my gratitudes list that And it didn't have to be pages long. As you can see, it was actually quite small. But I went and sat with 2021, and I looked back over it in my mind's eye, and I observed all the things that I was grateful for, and I wrote them all down. And I remember getting to the last thing, and there was a full stop, and then it just felt like there was nothing else after that. It was completed. So that's the last thing that I needed to do for that. So sometimes I do the gratitudes for the cycle, sometimes I don't. I always do the letter to my friend, the cycle, whatever it is. And then I always do changes and inclusions. And holy cow, does it just clarify things up for you so that you feel that you know where you are and where you want to go. And you haven't got bags and bags and bags of things that you're dragging around behind you. All right. So if you are not somebody that works with journals, please let me know other ways that you work or you would like to work so I can share the information, especially if you're putting it to the comments, because then others can see and we can share the ideas amongst ourselves. If you have any questions about that process at all, please let me know, and I'm happy to open up a discussion about it. And I can't wait to see what you do with yours. Bye for now.